We're here today with 7 amazing leaders in the Arizona fitness, coaching, and fight world. And we're here today to talk about moving forward in 2022 and kind of leaving behind the mindset of 2020 and 2021. Let's get started. We want to start with some intros here, and I'll go ahead and start. My name's Dan Huber. I'm the owner here at Spartan Nation Combatives and Fitness here in Mesa, Arizona, and we have a wonderful community that is very supportive of getting better and growing, and we love to have anybody who wants to be part of a Doers of Deeds community.
Dan, thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Brian Wood, and I'm the president of Mars Coaching. I'm scattered all over the place with the stuff that I do, but it's all connected to things that are about serving humanity, community, people, organizations. I operate in the space of supporting athletes and former athletes, also nonprofit leaders. I've been with the American Express Leadership Academy as an executive coach there for 6 years, and just high potential leaders. And I'm just really passionate. I'm a corporate dropout, was in corporate for a long, long time, and now I feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and that's serving others. So I appreciate being here, Dan. Thanks.
Thank you. My name is Tara. I'm a personal trainer. I own a company called Battle Ready Project. The project is just a collaborative of bringing people together and teaching them how to be physically, emotionally, and mentally prepared for what they encounter in life. And that isn't just someone who is like a firefighter going out to fight fires, or your police officers or whatever. It's also your stay-at-home mom who has 5 kids under the age of 5. It's your single parent. It's all of that stuff. You know, I truly believe that your physical capability is driven and motivated by your mind. And I think mindset is the basis to having a full holistic health.
Sweet. I'm Brig Woods. I am a performance physiotherapist. I'm the owner of Polaris PT and Wellness in Gilbert, Arizona, and we work with busy, active adults and athletes of all ages to provide creative and performance-driven solutions to their pain and other problems that they may have. And we do that so that people can move the way they want to move, do the activities and sports they want to be able to do, and do it with the people that matter the most to them. And movement, for me, is super important because I believe that movement truly is medicine. You should get a daily dose, and when you stop moving, it's really when you stop living. And so my whole thing is to empower people to not only move physically, but by moving physically, then they can move and feel empowered to change other parts of their life.
Nice. Yep. My name is Heather Story. My company is Heather K. Story. I am a high-performance leadership coach and consultant. I specialize in personal and business development. And my passion really is around, I'm going to say before, like growing leaders to grow their business. They ultimately become the cap in their organization. Always. I don't care who you are. It's always that comes down to that. But for me, it's really about identifying, like, who are you? What do you stand for? What are your values? And then living that, bringing that to the world intentionally on purpose. Because I think that is what is our gift, like unique to each and every one of us. We each have something that is just uniquely us, uniquely ours, our voice in the world. And cultivating that, discovering that beyond like what society says, what our upbringing is, what all of the external influences are around us, but to kind of dig deep and figure out, okay, who am I, and how do I best execute that in the world?
Love it. My name is Josh Morin, and I am the Vice President of Field Supplements. We're a health and wellness company based originally out of Montana. Obviously, I've relocated down here in the desert, much better weather for myself, and enjoy the heat. But besides my nutrition company and supplements, I'm also a success and addiction coach. And so I specialize in letting go, understanding the cause, the events that have shaped the feelings, and have really helped people optimize their full potential by actualizing those specific trauma bonds that have led to these certain specific patterns over and over again. So I help them essentially break the patterns to actualize their full potential. So I love this group of people. We're all really rather in the same structure and infrastructure of what we do within our own respective businesses, of really helping people become their best while we become our best at the same. So it's a pleasure to be here.
That's awesome. Clifford Starks. I am the founder of Mind Body Business Mastery. Ultimately, I have a dream, and the thing with the dream is the dream continues to move forward. Greatness within. There's greatness in every single one of us. And sometimes we got to look for it. Sometimes it's hard to find. But when we find it, it's special, and it's special in both ends. And as I see, we're nothing more than energy. We're energy at the end of the day. And when our energy resonates together, we create powerful things. And I know that when I can help people realize that through the stories that they hear, they show up for themselves and they show up for the people that they serve. So that's the game that I play.
Nice.
That's everybody. We got an all-star crew, guys.
Yeah, how did I get in here?
All right. Now we can all relax now. Your intro was, I bombed mine. Y'all did great. Okay, so we're here again. We're going to talk a little bit about. Let's go ahead and start with the last 2 years. All right. A lot of people don't want to look there, Heather.
I love it.
You're good with
I
it.
love
Okay.
it. I'm
All
totally
right.
good with it. Yeah.
So what we want to look at is what was the mindset? What were some of the setbacks? Anyone is welcome to chime in. 2020 kind of hit us. Nobody saw it coming, I don't think. Did anyone see that coming?
Not me.
No.
Astrologically, yes.
Yes? Turns out.
We're in for another one this year too, but in a different way.
Oh, man. Okay, so what did you personally experience? What did the people in your community experience that was maybe a setback, an uncertainty, a doubt that didn't allow for the progress to be made in the last 2 years that you thought was going to be made?
Well, no, I was just going to say for me, 2020, I didn't predict that. So you and I need to go to Vegas together and figure that all out because you knew something that everyone else didn't. I didn't see it coming. A big part of my world is in-person engagements with coaching and leadership development and all those kinds of things. So ironically for me, 2020, I fell into that almost that victim mode where it was like, oh man, we're going to be locked down for 2 weeks. This is ridiculous. And now it's like, whoa, that would have been awesome. So anyway, I guess the moral of the story is that I felt into that kind of a victim mentality. Like when everything gets back to normal, then I'll be okay. Everything will be, it's more like conditional. Success was more conditional. And I think moving into 2021, it was more about I've got to do a better job of taking ownership and controlling the things that I can control because we are the cavalry. We need to understand that we are the cavalry. It's how we show up. So that was a little bit of how the last 2 years looked for me.
Yeah, and so in 2020, I was working for somebody else doing in-home physical therapy. And we got hit, everything went down, and all of a sudden we were having to cancel appointments with people who needed us to be in their home. And I'm working with people who are sick. Like they just got out of the hospital, they've got diabetes, they've got heart disease, I've had people with 2 pages of meds that we're working with, right? And a lot of them have problems with their families, and so we weren't able to get in and help those people, one. And so people were suffering because they weren't getting, and a lot of those people didn't even want to do the exercises. I was there. They just wanted to hang out and chat with somebody, right? So they were missing that personal connection because they weren't getting it other places, and they couldn't get it anymore. And then for me, the part that was tough with me is I realized how much I was relying on somebody else for my own, to pay my bills, to make money, to be quote unquote successful. And all of a sudden I was doing great, but I was getting paid also based on how many people I saw. And so I saw my livelihood being taken away little bit by little bit. And so I think that was a big lesson. A lot of people suffered, right? Because they relied on the gym to exercise. They relied on somebody else, a boss or something, to help them make money. They relied on, their neighbors or their families for their own extended family, right, for support or for emotional validation, and all of that got stripped away. And so, like you were saying, and that was what it taught me, was that we're the masters of our own destiny, and we need to live that way.
Absolutely. I think for me, the thing that was hardest, so my world honestly didn't shift a whole lot in 2020 because I work primarily digitally. So I just got a lot better at Zoom. But for me, and I was really, really fortunate, like crazy fortunate, that the people that are closest to me were of similar mindset, similar attitude. One of the things I didn't mention is I also am one of the coaches here at Spartan Nation. So this community was so big, because even when we couldn't be together, even when we couldn't meet, the gyms were not allowed to be open. We got creative, and then we still did things online, and we had like little challenges, and so I still had that sense of community and connection and engagement, which was really, really wonderful. But the place that was really hard for me is I'm much more empathetic. Like, I feel what's going on around me. So to see friends and family and the culture, the society in this just state of shock and fear, and then there was all of the social distress that was happening in 2002 with the whatever you want to call them, riots.
The mostly peaceful protests?
Yeah.
The one with the big fire burning in the background?
And seeing, I think the thing that was really disturbing to me was then seeing how, what was being said socially, like in the media and such, just didn't match. Like, it didn't match what we were seeing. And in my world, in my profession, like, that's where I live, so I know how to look out for that. But I could see that impact in my family and friends, where they were just like, didn't know what to believe, didn't know what was going on, and felt that, when you feel that thing inside where something just doesn't feel right, yet everybody outside of you is telling you, no, it's totally fine, it's perfectly fine. And there is that's trauma, right? That's a trauma trigger, and seeing all of these triggers of trauma happening, that was a place that just was so painful. And like, I really wanted to just like go out and hug everybody and be like, you're not alone, like, we're here, and you're not crazy, and you still, what you're feeling is right, because it's what you're feeling. Because there was so much of like, nope, what you think, what you feel, where you are, it's wrong, it's wrong, it's wrong. And that to me was just so painful and divisive, and I'm all about the love, so.
And that was what, to your point, I think one of the biggest things for most people was the uncertainty, and then just the perpetual gaslighting. Like, you know what I mean? Because people aren't stupid. As a general rule, most people are pretty relatively intelligent, and they know what's going on, and they know, it was like, don't believe your lying eyes. Please do not believe, right?
Right.
Like, I don't know, and maybe it's the world I live in, but I just don't, everyday Americans, I don't think hate each other nearly as much as, the media, as legacy media, or big, whatever you want to call them, but as much as we're being told, and as much as, right, and just that uncertainty.
Well, I'll say this, the more news I watch, regardless of which channel you're looking at, the worse I feel.
Yeah.
And so for me to tell you or you or anyone else, this is how you should feel, that doesn't make any sense. Right? It is about respecting, understanding, like, oh, I can understand why there's absolute outrage there. I can understand why someone would feel in this space there. But for me to say, this is how you should experience life and this is the lens that you should see the world through, that doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Going back to what Heather was saying, I mean, that disconnect. I think you hit on something really important there, that people weren't allowed to feel how they wanted to feel. And if you can't feel how you want to feel, there's a lot of frustration there. Right?
Yeah. That frustration, anger, fear, resentment, like there's a whole
A lot that builds up there, and then you don't do what you want to do, or you don't build what you want to build, and there's a lot less progress, I think, made, whether it be communication, whether it be building a business, fitness. I think we saw a lot of that suffer over the last 2 years. So I think you hit the nail on the head with that disconnect.
Well, let me jump in here. I was telling Dan when we were talking about this, I've got 2 teenagers. So a couple of them, maybe a year ago, so my kids have been in masks in school and all of that stuff. And at one point, my daughter came home. She's 14. And she was like, hey, Mom. She's like, I figured out that when I'm talking to people or when I meet people, that I don't even have to smile behind my mask. I just squint my eyes like this and they think that I'm smiling. So I don't really have to smile. Like, that to me was the most shocking, like, disconnected, wholeheartedly, just like, what are we doing to our kids? Like, what is happening here, and how are we okay with this, and how do we change it? You know.
It's been an introverted paradise for the last 2 years.
Right. Well, and that for her, I mean, this was like that resolution. Like, she thought she was doing something great. She was like, oh, I found the best solution. The least amount of effort, and people still think I'm engaging, and here I am hiding behind my mask, and it doesn't matter. You know? Like, that's terrifying to me.
What's terrifying to me is that she didn't, like, it wasn't a genuine thing to smile, like, I'm meeting you and I'm happy and I'm connecting with you, because that is what we are hardwired for.
Or I'm shaking your hand, or I'm hugging
Yes,
you, or
yes, like, oh my gosh, it's so, like, Josh, it's so awesome.
You're getting elbow tapped. That was like the thing, the elbow tap. Like, what?
I don't need
Yeah. Like, this is not how we're supposed to be. I think that's one thing too with the business side of things is you were kind of walking on glass. So as a business owner, I have to be very careful as to exactly how I'm projecting myself and branding myself, because I also have a personal brand, and then I have my main brand where I'm selling products and services to people. So it's, during this time, there was really a fine line of objectivity of being able to say, okay, this is what I can and can't say, because if you say one thing one way, a lot of people they'll cancel. You'll lose their business. And you say one thing the other way, it's the opposite. So I really had to learn, especially being a young business owner. My dad's been in the realm for 35 plus years, and he's helped me and guided me a lot in the last handful of years. But for me, it was like I was so one way of how I thought. And I was like, I was so in my own opinion, like this is how it was going to be. But really having to kind of stand back and be more objective and understanding, okay, there's multiple sides to this. I can feel how I feel, share it with specific people, but also really include in my business, rather, really not go off the deep end one way or the other, so that I'm not creating more division even within my own business. So,
To your point, I think the thing, especially that because I'm not a big social media, I don't like it. It's a necessary evil for me as part of being a business. But yeah, to your point, I think the things that would be better, obviously divisiveness and airing your huge opinion, whatever opinion you have, can definitely draw more clicks or remove eyes from you. But I think I'm learning, if I'm projecting positivity and talking about principles that are true, not my truth, but just actual true principles of self-reliance, positivity, right? Take control of your environment, that kind of stuff. That's hard to argue with. Then those are things that no matter which side of the political aisle or however you believe, those are things that everybody can get behind. And if everybody would do those things would be better.
Yeah, the truth shall set you free. Yeah. I mean, and it's the highest resonance of vibration is truth. I mean, the truth is just simply truth. There's no force against it. There's no counterforce. So
No, but there are different levels of it.
there's for
Right?
yeah.
Each one of us has our
Right,
own perception,
right.
our own lens that we're looking through. And for me, like the add-on to what you said, which I think is perfect and beautiful, the add-on for me was compassion. Like, where the hell did compassion go in our society? Like, where has that gone? And not even just for other people, but for ourselves. Like the places, like when we're not going to the gym, when we're not then accomplishing our goals, or we're not doing the things, or we're looking at these challenges, that somehow then we turn that lens in and start attacking ourselves. It's like, come on, have a little grace. This is, we're human beings having a human experience, and love that process. Don't judge it. It's to learn. And
It's a journey, isn't it? And that's something we talk about a lot at Spartan Nation is you're going to have things that don't go perfectly. You're going to have the slip-ups. You got to look at the journey. Are you headed in the right direction? Or, and this is the weirdest thing, a lot of times when we slip up, we say, oh man, I messed up, and now I'm going to go eat 24 donuts because, I had a bag of chips and, no, why? How does that make any sense?
That's not what, no, that's.
No, that's not it, Rick. No, but
I always
Isn't
go
that
to my
funny?
favorite therapist when I screw up. I go see Dr. Ben and Dr. Jerry.
there you go. There you go. No, it is. And then if we can change that mindset of we're imperfect and let's keep on going towards our goals as we mess up, as we fail. Brian and I were talking a little bit about, what were you saying about, Brian? We should celebrate
Yeah.
those falls. That
Stumble.
means you're doing something.
Sure.
Right?
You're not on the sidelines for sure. And I think that's the perfect analogy too, right? I had one slice of cheesecake and now I'm gonna have 7 or whatever the case is. The reality is when we stumble, it should be it's time to celebrate because we've got the guts to be in the game, and now we've got to move closer towards our end game. Not of a place, and I think Heather talked about this, right? No judgment. It's not judgment. I'm just not beating myself up or someone else up. It's more of discernment and okay, what did I learn from that? How can I do better, and how can I shift this to a place where I get closer to my end game? And there is no end game. It's an ongoing thing.
yeah.
It's a process, like you're saying. Right?
It sounds like you maybe have, but there's a fabulous book that I'm currently working my way through, but Finite and Infinite Games.
I've heard about that.
Finite, I think it's called Infinite Games or Finite and Infinite
is
Games.
that Simon Sinek?
I don't know if it's him. I see, this shows you how much I'm.
He's working his way through the cover.
The thing is like that there are finite games and there are infinite games. And finite games have a clear end to them, right? That it's I'm going to accomplish this, right? And only people who are playing the game or know that they're playing the game can play the game.
Mm-hmm.
Now, but an infinite game is it just goes on and on and on. You don't ever get to stop playing the game until you're dead, right? But you understand, and the rules sometimes change and whatever. But that's life, right? It's this infinite game that we play, and we constantly keep scoring different ways. But as long as you're playing the game, you're playing the game, right?
Yeah.
And I kind of think the bigger the game you're trying to play, the more you're going to have these dips, right?
Yeah.
The more you're going to stumble and you're going to fall. But if you're playing the bigger game, you're going to get the bigger payoff at the end, right? And like my patients when they come in, my clients when they come in, and I'm like, so hey, how'd your exercises go this week, right? How'd your correctives and your other stuff, the program we put together, and the level of like shame. People are like, I'm sorry, I didn't do that. I'm like, no, it's cool. Like it's fine. Like you're going to get out of it what you put into it. And then we talk about I just draw squiggly, like a stock market thing.
Yeah,
Like,
you got it.
recovery's like the stock market, man. You're going to go up, then you're going to go down, you're going to go up, you're going to go down. As long as we're not going back here, you're winning.
Keep trending.
We're doing it.
Well, the big game, like Josh was talking about with business, right? And the mindset of a business leader, that's a big game. Like that's a long-term game. So every time you stumble, if you just close the doors, that's not going to work.
Well, and I think, too, we were talking about it earlier. My husband and I own a landscaping company as well. And that first year, there were so many times where, I mean, we were working sun up to sundown. Like, there was a time where I was running the whole landscaping company on my own, like servicing yards by myself and all of that stuff. And there were some really long, hard days. And those are the days now that we look back on and we laugh and we talk about how much fun it was and how cool it was. And I think there's a part of leveling up when you realize, like, the hard times are the fun times.
Yeah.
Like, that's where you're growing, that's where you're building, that's where you're learning, and those are like the best times.
I think that's a critical mindset shift for most people, is to, instead of looking at the obstacles as being something that's getting in the way, right? Instead of this being something that, it's a sign. If I had $1 for every time I've heard that, oh, it's a sign, I can't do that. But instead of looking at the obstacle as being something that's in the way, that you look at something like, no, this is your chance to grow, to develop, to gain the skills. I use this analogy of a stair step. Like, so we're moving along, we've got this pattern, and then we hit what would be the riser, right, of the stair tread. And that's where, like, the idea of obstacles or challenges come up, and that's the place where you start to develop. Okay, well, what skills do I need here? What mindset shift do I need to hear? Where are the limitations that I internally am imposing on the situation that are capping me? And that you grow those. That's the place where you develop that, and that's what rises you up for the next level. Like, that's the next place. That's the next tread that then you move along, and then it comes again. So to look at those not as these, like, oh God. I had the piece of cheesecake, or the funding didn't come through, or I can't find the right people, whatever those are, to be like, nope, this is crunch time. Like, this is the time I get excited. Like, I seriously get excited when stuff comes up. I'm like, okay, this sucks. Like, it totally sucks. But I know on the other side, it's going to be freaking amazing. And I've got what I need to get there. And so shifting that mindset of like resistance to the challenge to embracing it and being like, yes.
That lean in.
Yeah, leaning in.
And that's a very stoic philosophy. Like, that is very stoicism.
Yeah.
I've gotten super, like, this last couple of years, I've gotten super into stoicism because it's awesome. But, like, exactly what you're saying, the obstacle is the way.
Yes.
Right? So I looked it up because I'm like, I didn't have the top of my head, but Marcus Aurelius says, our actions may be impeded, but there can be no impeding our intentions or dispositions, because we can accommodate and adapt.
Yes.
It's not what happens, it's what we do about it. Right. With everything, mindset, physically, spiritual, like whatever it is, it's not what happens, it's what we do about it. And I've got to say one quick story. I was working with a professional team who brought in a Navy SEAL. Guy was unbelievable. And his mindset was just incredible. And he talked about, they have this thing called Hell Week that they go through, the Navy SEALs. Insane, right? They have to run over 100 miles. And if you win every single exercise, you'll get like 5 hours of sleep the whole week. Anyway, short version is, he said his mindset, the people that did really well, they said, I just got to get to the next meal. Like, as soon as you put in your head that I've got to reinvent my business and I've got to do all these different things and I'm almost bankrupt and it's over. But I just got to get to the next meal. Then I'll get recharged. Then I'll get strong again. Then I'll keep going. So it's the same exact thing with everything that we did. We just have to get to the next meal. And I just loved when he came in. I was like, man, that was powerful.
Amen. Yeah, I look at we're limitless, and I had a very different experience as COVID came around. It made me come out because I'm an empath too. And my first death came when I was 5. My grandfather passed away. And I remember just feeling that tension and that fear, and I didn't know what to do. And I couldn't talk to my parents because my parents didn't understand. And 5-year-old kids didn't understand. Like, they talked about goldfish and birds. And so I was stuck in this thing.
Wow.
And when I felt free again, I went through my coaching process and I said, all right, I'm gonna fucking die. Mm-hmm. But that means I get to fucking live. Yeah. And so that's what I did, was live.
Yeah.
And so when 2020 came along, this was it. Like, I have to stand up. I get to lead now.
Stepped on the gas.
Yeah, I get to shine for people because they need this thing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's why they say you got to look backwards. You can't look forward, because if you're just looking forward all the time, you think, I'm not good enough. I got to keep up with this person. I got to keep up with that person.
Yeah.
I was done keeping up a long time ago.
Yeah.
I already knew, like, wait, don't you all know the punchline is we all die? No? You didn't know that? Oh, that's right. I learned that way early on.
Yeah.
And so here I'm like, if I just listen to a person, if I just let them have their human experience, they go through the cycle. They go through the cycle in the way that they have to. And all of these leaders coming together, and thank you for having this.
Yeah, amen.
Because it's like, wait a minute, if I just get around light workers, we can't help but to shine together.
Right.
Like we all win.
Yeah. Yep.
Even your 14-year-old daughter. Personally, I give her props for that. This is why. This is why.
Found out how.
Because we are having a human experience. We are having a human experience. She's a 14-year-old girl, not thinking that far ahead, thinking like, oh, now I can just fake this thing. Like, Mom, I got this thing I
Yeah.
can fake. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, babe, okay. But are there any consequences to that thing? Like, I'm talking with my kids and I'm like, oh, this is beautiful. Like, he's 5.
Yeah.
And the other's 1, and they're just figuring it out. They're learning it. They're learning the process, and you have to trip, and you have to fall, and you have to get strong, and you have to have great moments, and you have to have victimized, man, this fucking sucks
Yeah, it
moments.
does. Yeah,
Like,
it does. Yeah.
this isn't fair. What
Yeah.
the fuck?
Yeah,
You need
yeah,
you need it
yeah,
all, and
yeah.
and when you learn how to be a human being, like, you can use the good times and the bad times equally.
Yeah.
Like, you have infinite power. It's
Truly.
limitless.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so no matter what happens, you're like, I'm ready for this. I'm ready to go.
Clifford, I love. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I was just gonna say I love that approach and that mindset, and I can only imagine how painful that was as a 5-year-old. Right, overwhelming, and you've leveraged that into impact other people. That's just incredible. But the difference, not but and, the difference between that positive thinking, which is good. Right, oh, turn that frown upside down. That's all awesome until it's not. And then, like you said, you get to that point where you're like, you know what, this sucks. Now that's that positive psychology where I can say, yeah, this sucks. Like I'm not even gonna try to give you a fake smile. This sucks. Okay, now what?
Yeah.
Now what? I'm gonna acknowledge that. Now what am I gonna do about it? Now what are we gonna do about it? And you're exactly right. It's always about being in the right room, surrounding yourself with the right people, share the right thoughts. That generates the right mindset. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
gonna say, man, like you talking.
Yeah.
So we had our first child this last year, 2021. So he's only 6 months old. But you talking about like this really is an awesome opportunity for people with young kids to really teach them how to be fearless, right? How to be fearless in the face of these obstacles and this whatever else is going on. An opportunity to demonstrate, to help them, show them compassion, right? Like you go to the grocery store, somebody's freaking out at you, or you go, hey, and then they don't understand, but that guy's just having a bad day.
Yeah.
Something else must be going
Yeah.
on in his life, and
sure.
how bad is it for him? How do we feel for him? Like, and how could we have helped that person
Yeah,
in that
yeah.
instance, right? Some really interesting ways that as I'm now listening to you thinking, how can I turn what's going on right now into a positive for my son? And then the other thing you're talking about, the contemplating death, right? That you're like, again, I can't help but go back to I'm going to do it again, but it's back to Stoicism, right? Like the memento mori, contemplate your own death. And if they spend time contemplating your death, because we're all going to die. And so you have to live with the time that you got. So
I had a crazy experience, and this was not on my agenda to share with you. However, you're bringing it last year, so in 2021, I actually went through a shamanic death and rebirth ceremony, which is, oh my gosh, it was such a pivotal experience for me, and it actually shaped my entire 2021. But the premise being, I mean, there's the ceremony itself when you go through specific things, and one of them is that you write your eulogy. So if you haven't done that, highly recommend that as an exercise. One of the hardest things I've ever done was to go through that process of like, how do I want to be seen? How do I want to be remembered? What is like the impact, and is it anyway? But and then the aftermath of that, and of going through the process of kind of really my term was an untethered Heather, but like really untethering myself from everything that I had identified myself with. Like all the things that I held to be true about myself all of a sudden weren't there. And it's like, it was a little freaky, right? It was a little freaky for a while. And I'm like, you know what? But this is awesome. I get to like totally create who I want to be and how I want to be and how I want to show up in the world. And then, and you know, not that there weren't some moments that were like, anyway, but that it was so intentional, and to get so clear about who I am and understanding that anything that I desire in the world, like we think about want. I'm a big person on language. I hate the word want. I'm not going to be, because to me it implies lack. It means that it's not there, like it's something outside. So I like desire better. And for me, I've even reframed that. I shared this with Dan a couple months ago, like that. For me, anything that I desire, anything that I'm drawn to, anything that I see, that is me projected in the world. So for me, it's like, that's my I am. So I am that. I am. And it was, anyway, I love that concept. I mean, it was absolutely, not that you have to go through a shamanic death and rebirth ceremony, however, but it was, I love the idea of really evaluating your own mortality and what is it? Like, how do you want to be remembered? Going through that process for me, like of the writing the eulogy, I realized I don't want to be remembered for what I did. I want to be remembered for who I was and how I impacted people and what I brought forth and laid path for, or whatever. That is what is most important to me.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was interested about what you're saying is language one, and then this idea of kind of untethering yourself. I went through this course where they basically talk everything that is that we create and is created in language.
Yes.
Like if you look at the Bible, right? God didn't make it doesn't say made the sun, right? It says he said, "Let there be light," and there was light. He said, "Let this happen," right? That through the language we create, language we speak, that's what we create. So, like people, just trivial example. People go, "Well, I'm not a runner." Like they'll walk into a running store and they'll be like, I'm not a runner, but I'm just here. And like they may want to go running, right? But if all they have to say is, I'm a runner. I'm a runner, right? And then they have to do, because they've now identified as a runner, they're like, this is what I am. And then every action that they have needs to reinforce that idea that they're a runner. That's also, there's another great, if you've ever read Atomic Habits, talks a little bit about that. Fabulous book. But then the other part of this course was the culmination is that you kind of come to this conclusion, or that they show you that life is empty and meaningless, and even that statement is empty and meaningless.
Yes.
Right? Not in a nihilistic sort of way, right? Like people hear that and initially like, what? No, there has to be some meaning to this thing, right? No, but it really is. Life is empty and meaningless, and the only meaning that exists in life is what we give it, right?
Well, that gives you freedom, doesn't it?
Yeah, it gives you tons of freedom. It also it gives you freedom for, like, I could be like, dude, Dan's being such a jerk. No, Dan's not being a jerk. Dan's being the way Dan is being, and I'm the one who called him a jerk or made it mean that he's being a jerk, right? Or that guy was so rude to me. No, he wasn't. He's just being who he's being. Get over it.
I'm trying to shut up. I apologize. But you guys are bringing this out of me, and so it's the language. Yeah, this is your fault. The language, that's such a powerful dynamic, right? The like I've heard people say, I don't say I'm sick, I'm healing. Like there's certain things, because our minds can't tell the difference between our imagination and reality. So even things like, we're in a space of physical fitness, right? If I am telling myself, doing push-ups, and I'm like, oh man, I'm tired, this is so hard, my body reacts a certain way. But if I tell myself that, man, this is making me stronger, each push-up my body is changing. So like all the stuff, the language, the thoughts, the people, that all impacts the way we show up and how we can serve other people. So awesome.
Yeah, word is law and words do not return void. That's my favorite saying. And
Say that again?
Word is law and words do not return void. So you speak into existence the word so semantics are very powerful. And so like when I'm doing my addiction coaching is really letting go of the stories that you're telling yourself. You're completely changing your language structure. So I call it committed language. So anything that you speak now is committed language. It's very, very very committed in itself, but your language has purpose and clarity, and like you said, I am that. So you're using I am statements. I don't use I call them weak words, like hope is a very weak word. I don't use hope.
Wish.
Yes, wish. These are all weak words that fill the ego to like keep it in the same repeating process over and over again of being disappointed, overweight, over-obligated, uncommitted.
Yes.
And so you recommit your word choice. And so words are law and words do not return void is my favorite statement.
And hope is not a plan.
It's not a plan. No, you're committed. Being committed is a plan. And
Right.
going back into some of the other topics that we're talking about is just being in the solution and not in the problem.
Yes.
And beating down the problem. Like if you could turn on, like you said, the news, you could be in every problem there is, and it's always going to exist. Even before, the last 2 years isn't the only time there's been problems.
Right.
And so there's always going to be problems. So if you're continually in the problem, you beat down the problem, you're going to have more problems. But I always like the now what statement. Okay, this is happening, now what? What's the solution? How are you going to be committed into the solution and saying this is my map of course of action to really put me in a position to win? And it goes back into being in win-win situations. Then win-win situations with people, doing commerce with, business with, attracting the right people to really collaborate, create this culture and community of excellence that's really bringing you to that next level of consciousness, ascending the levels of consciousness and leaving the past behind, the repressed, the suppression, the trauma bonds that have kept us in these perpetual cycles over and over again, really letting us step into our best self, our truest self, and that was like the death of the ego.
Yeah.
I've experienced the death of the ego in many other ways, not by the shaman. I won't probably go into all of that, but I'm getting close here on 3 years of clean sobriety, and so.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Awesome.
So for me, sobriety has been my pathway to surrender, and that's been my ultimate clarity to really step into my truest self, which has been ego death. And the ego is really continuing to keep us in this place of being the victim, the payoff of the ego, of being disappointed, of having these situations of people that just continually let us down. And a lot of times we self-sabotage our own self and our own actions. We become, like you said, victims in this world because it's easy to be the victim. It's easy to point your finger and say, oh, well, it's this and this, it's this and this.
Yeah.
But to really take charge of your life and be the captain and commander in chief of your life is really just being committed. Instead of like thinking of like this big valiant effort, like you have to like, you're not going to be, hopping on the back of a horse and making this charge. It's more or less like the daily disciplines. Like what can you do one step at a time, If you're eating 10 pieces of cake, can you eat 8 today and then go down to 6 and then go down to 5 and then go down to 2?
And yes, I can eat.
Right, you know what I'm saying though? But it's just like, man, it's just the daily discipline's really what it is. It's just like, I'm an addiction coach, so on myself, I'm a recovering addict. It's one day at a time. And I think of life like, if you can think of all principles of life, just one day at a time, I'm just simply here for today. And I'm in today, here, right now, because I can't, like you said, the future, man.
Amen.
I thought it was funny because I was like, I always say that we're just consciousness, we're just meat suits, just going
Yes.
through space,
Yes.
essentially.
Yes.
We're just a flesh vehicle of consciousness going through this human experience for the time here and now, and whatever your thoughts or beliefs are in the afterlife or what they are. But we're in this living, breathing human experience, and all we have is just now, man.
Amen.
Yeah.
I love that. I think. Oh, go ahead. No.
As a human being, right? Like we're being, and I went through my process, and I was a personal trainer first, so I went the personal trainer route, and I point to you because they're just titles, right?
Yeah.
And we get to choose how we use the title. And so this guy calls me up. He's like, hey, I think you can help me, and I think you're the only one who can. I'm like, okay. Can you explain further? And he mentioned he was dealing with the meth addiction. And he couldn't get clean, and he didn't know how to. And he felt I was the only one who could do it. And so I'm crazy as hell, so if you give me a big challenge, I'm going after it. Like, I just can't help myself. Like, I'm just like, fuck yes, let's do it. Let's see what we can do. All right. Then I found out how addicting meth was. I'm like, huh. Well, that's interesting. 1,200, a 1,200 dopamine hit. Sex is 100.
Oh,
so
dang.
it's 12 times more addicting than sex. And I'm sitting there like, wonder if did I bite off more than I could chew? Like, let's see what happens. He was hitting it out the park. He was crushing it. And all I did was I took what I learned as a trainer and I applied it to addiction. I just took the same thing. I'm like, holy shit, it's the same thing. Like, we talk about mindset. It's all about the mindset. If you can't get into their mind, you're not getting into their body. Like, it's just not happening. And even if you could force it, and you can force it, but you can't let it be. It won't become. Yeah. It will just be forced. And when it's away from force, it's just going to be what it was before. And so going through that process, I'm like, holy shit, we're amazing. Like, we're absolutely amazing. If we just sit back and listen closely, we'll find those little bugaboos in their head. And then we'll be able to shift them. But if we try and force it, because I try and force everything that I ever start when I first start it. It's the fighter in me. Like, I'm just like, it's not working. I'm getting tired. Oh, God. Oh, it didn't work. Oh, let me just let it happen this way. Okay, yeah, the surrender.
Surrender.
And so my transition from my fighter's journey to my entrepreneur journey, I didn't think words meant anything. I'm like, they're just words. Words don't mean shit. It's the action that means everything. And then I realized, holy crap, no, it's just the way that I've been using the words. I use every word as a positive word, regardless of what a person's saying. You can call me the N-word, and I'm like, I wonder why they're calling me that. Sure. They must be really, really in a lot of pain to think that they are split from me, because we're all the same. I'm like, I had one person, like, yeah, me and my boyfriend are just so different. And this is what our brain does. It deletes, distorts, and delegates. And then I realized, all right, well, where are you guys similar? Oh, we're not similar in any way. I guarantee you I can name 5 ways you are. How? Well, you both have a nose. You both have 2 nostrils. You both have 2 eyes. You both have hair, right? You both have arms. You both have legs. And we're like, oh, yeah, I didn't think about that. And that's the thing. Everything comes down to what we're thinking about, what we're going to focus on. And so if we focus on, like, a reminder of how strong and infinite and perfect we are. Because we're talking about imperfect, and we are imperfect, but we're also perfect.
Yep.
Perfect in
Yeah.
imperfection.
We become what we decide we want to become.
Yep.
When we go, I want to be this. I want to be mad at Dan for saying blah, 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 blah. Or I don't want to. I'm just going to take responsibility. I'm just going to take full responsibility.
I'll take Dan. This Dan guy.
But we go through the process, and it's like we get to be whatever we're going to be. And if we just take responsibility, because that's what I taught him. I'm like, look, you take responsibility for your life. I get it. It's an addiction. It's a real thing. It's not like, and I'm just going to abracadabra and it's going to be better. But you're choosing who you're around. You notice how when you're around me, I don't see any drug addicts around. I don't see any of these things. It's an energetic thing. You become what you surround yourself with.
Yep.
That's it.
I think you took it from words back to thoughts, right? So we went even a step farther back, which is how we start, right? We start with that thought.
Yeah, I was going to say, class.
Yes.
Yes, I love Andrew. Work in cold therapy.
There's got to be stress, right?
Bet it's chronic.
And have fully recovered. They told me I would have a permanent disability for the rest of my life because of it. Uh-uh. Well, yes, and. Yes, and we, the inability or the barrier, the barrier to connecting is who I am going to be safe with you?
Sure.
And right now, there's a whole lot of no's to that, and it's everywhere. And I really think that becomes a major barrier to entry about it's like, but what we get to do is you get to role model that, right? Like, I'm going to be the person that's going to be like, hey, this is what I believe. I believe some wackadoo stuff. Like, wackadoo compared to something somewhere. I don't know. It's my world. I'm everything from quantum physics to energy work to spirituality and energy work and doing like energy healing and everything in between. I was going to say, this came up for me. I think this is a Harvard study. Something tells me you'll know for sure. I think it was a Harvard study that said in any given second, so every second, we have over 2 million bits of information that happens around us. 2 million bits of information. We only have the capacity to pick up 126 of them. 126. And of that, I think we can only focus on about 3 to 7, something like that. But this is why mindset, the words, because we become hypnotized. We hypnotize ourselves with our thoughts and our words, and then eventually our actions. And we are externally as well. But where that becomes so important, the mindset is those 126 bits that we pick up, that comes from our internal belief system. That comes from our unconscious mind. That comes from our upbringing, which is why I think doing the work to get in and be like, okay, who am I? What the heck do I believe? And to what level, like, what are my values around this? And can I have a conversation? Ego, right? I think of ego as being lack. To me, that like those two things, ego equals lack. Anytime I see something and it's not good enough, it's not exactly what I want, it's not this, it's not that, to me, that's ego. Like, and where like spirit, soul, source, God, whatever you want, whatever label works for you, I don't care what word you use, is that to me is abundance. That is just ever overflowing. That's that expansive, beautiful energy. So for me, I utilize that as a like a litmus for me when I'm feeling into something. Like, how does this make me feel? Okay, I'm getting a little off track. Anyway, the mindset, whatever we bring in, what our mindset is who we internally identify ourselves with, which 9 times out of 10, I don't think it's conscious. I don't think we even know that. We're just reacting and responding to our history, to the trauma that we've had, to the meaning making that we have. But that 126 is little tiny ass, I mean, that's little, like little tiny bit. That we only then will pull in what reinforces what we already believe. Right. That is the process.
There's a bunch of thoughts that we all have, and when I say a bunch, it's like 60,000 thoughts a day, and metacognition is thinking about our thinking. So we can think about, we each have a nose and eyes and all those things that you talked about earlier, or we can head down another path. And this is really connected to thoughts and beliefs, because if you're surrounded with the wrong thoughts and the wrong people, then the outcome is going to be undesirable. As an example, have you ever had someone come up to you and say, wow, you look sick today? No, I feel good. You look, the second person, you look sick today. You're sick at a certain point. I feel, all of a sudden I start to feel sick, right? Like, so these are internal thoughts and external thoughts. So as opposed to my thoughts being my internal thoughts being, you know what, I am badass. I am the real deal, like every single day, even if it's not true, right? I'm just throwing all kinds, I'm limitless, like I am incredible. All those thoughts are putting you on a different level, as opposed to listening to this stuff that's garbage and that it doesn't serve us or our community. So I appreciate all the thoughts here. It's very cool.
I had a goal last year, Brian, and you just reminded me of this, that I had a pull-up goal that I wanted to have a certain number of pull-ups. And I realized that I had the thought every time I went up to the pull-up bar. I didn't even realize until I really analyzed. I said, pull-ups are hard. But it was on like a subconscious level, you know. I went up, I was like, oh, this is gonna be tough.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I was like, what am I doing? I'm shooting myself in the foot here, right? I'm shooting myself. So I would out loud, I would say, pull-ups are easy.
Yeah.
And when I said pull-ups are easy, I started doing some more.
Wow.
I started doing some more. That mindset, that belief that you hit on, Britt, it's huge. It's huge. And I think, you know, the example that you said about the Bible, God said, let there be light. When you say something, tying this all in together, guys, you guys are powerful. There's a lot of lessons, and I hope that maybe we can have a little review and kind of get your analyzation of what lessons we learned today as well. But I think one of the big ones is believing is maybe where we start, right? Having the human experience, like Clifford told us, is where we go. You said, where do we get the information? It's having the human experience. And Heather taught us about have a little bit of mercy for people. Have a little compassion for their viewpoint. They've experienced something maybe different than you have.
Thing that my wife and I talk about with each other is assume generously.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I don't know where I've looked at it enough, but like I got a bunch of siblings and stuff, but I'm empathetic. Like I believe it or not, I'm actually really, it's almost too much sometimes for me. But like seriously, and I'm also, I call myself the designated middle child. There's 7 of us, but there's 4 that are born under 5 years. Then there's 3-year gap, me 4-year gap, and then my 2 younger siblings who are like a year and a half apart. So I'm the designated middle child, right? So I assume if somebody's mad, it's right. What were we just saying before that? So my ADD just kicked in hard.
The human experience.
It's like you were talking
Belief
about.
system.
You said assumed. What my thing is assumed.
Oh, assume generously. There we go. Assume generously, right? So like if somebody says something to me, I've kind of put on this like thing like, what do you mean by that? Or what? Or why are you ignoring me? Or whatever, right? Like I'll say something, this is a perfect example. I'll say something to my wife. She'll be in the other room, in the laundry room, with the like machines are going, and I'll think I'm being loud enough. And then I'm like, why are you ignoring me? Why, like, are you ignoring me? Like what? And you know, and it's this shit, I'm not ignoring you. I will never ignore you, right? And so it's this thing for me where I'm like, I've had to like learn to assume generously. That this other person doesn't have compassion for them and understand whatever's the best possible outcome is probably what's happening here, right? She didn't hear me, right? It's not she's ignoring me, but me, like whatever thing I've got going on is like, oh, she's ignoring me.
The stories we tell ourselves.
Yes.
And taking everything personally, right?
Yeah.
Taking everything for me, my language, and I think it might be a little bit different, but I think of it as assumed benevolence.
Yeah.
So that when something comes in and it hits me hard, like where it doesn't feel good when it comes in, I'm like, okay, do I really believe that this person intended to harm, or was it, where was the mismatch? And so to inquire about that.
So sorry, I didn't mean to derail.
I think one of the best things I ever heard someone say is someone else's opinion of you is
None of my
Yeah, not your
business.
business. It's not your business.
Oh my God, I'm telling you, it's my favorite, one of my
Yes,
favorite quotes.
I love that because it really is. When I start worrying about what other people think about me, then all of a sudden I'm seriously an asshole and I'm assuming everything. Like I'm assuming this, I'm assuming that, I'm assuming across. It's a gamut. It's across the board. As long as I remember, like your opinion of me is not my business. Like that's your experience. That's your, how you view it, and we either get along or we don't get along. But that's not my business either.
Well, perception is projection, right? How we perceive the world is what we're putting out into the world. So you all are amazing and fabulous, right?
Sorry, didn't mean to derail you, Dan.
This is good.
Josh was talking about our skin suits, right?
Yeah, why'd you get a better looking one than me?
I was going to like going into perspective and what we can be and how we can define ourselves. And I define myself as the curious expert. I'm an expert in my own skin. I'm an expert in my own perspective. And even we're only processing 126 of those bits too. So even being an expert, I'm still a small expert in my own perspective. And if I maintain curiosity, if I ask questions, like you talking about being an empath, some people may not assume that about you.
No.
Just be like, oh, well, you look this way.
I don't project it because I don't want to get hurt.
Yeah, I never realized, like, me being the little fat kid, right? People don't see that.
I feel you deeply.
Yeah, they don't see it. They just see, like, oh my God, you're this athlete who can do this and that, and I'm like, I was just
It
this
always
little
came
fat
easy
kid.
to you, didn't it?
Yeah.
That's what they think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, just like, oh yeah, I just got up. You know, I said I wanted to do this thing, and it just happened for me. I'm like, no, I worked. It started with one rep. It started with one. You know, we were talking about like, okay, what's the
rep.
one movement that they can make? What's the one
powerful,
movement?
man.
And I always said, it's the fucking story. It's the story. It's always the story. If I can get the story right, and it's not I, it's we. If we can get the story right, we're all coming together trying to figure out, and we go back to our own tribes and to our communities, serving our communities, right? And it's like, all right, we all have our own community. I have a community that's gonna love me no matter what. I could do it perfectly wrong, and they'd still like, oh, Cliff, you're amazing. And then there's gonna be some people, I could do it perfectly, like, you still suck. And so knowing that and going like, okay, if I always stay at a high energy, and my people stay at a high energy, and their people stay at a high energy, we all win.
And then you resonate that out.
Yeah.
Right? Like that becomes the ripple.
Yeah. Limitless.
So what's interesting, you said it's not necessarily it's we, right? And I agree we all have our own respective communities, but each of these different communities are part of the much larger community of Mesa, Gilbert, Tempe, wherever you are, which is part of the larger community of Arizona, which is part of the larger, right? And it just keeps growing from there. So what's interesting is I spent 2 years in Korea, and so I speak Korean, and it's interesting that when they talk, so like, for example, if I was going to introduce, like, Brian, if I'm going to introduce you to somebody that doesn't know you, right? You and I know each other now, and I was going to introduce you to my friend, or I wouldn't even say my friend. What I would do is I'd say, hey, I'd be like, hey, Dan, this is our friend Brian.
Right. The language.
They talk in a collective we. So like my sister, this is my sister over here, Sarah. I'd be like, hey everybody, this is our sister Sarah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Like,
very
and so
cool. I love
they
that.
do. Now, I do think that one of the benefits and one of the things that's very cool and is super important about at least one of the ideas that we have in America, right, is that we have that raw individualism that allows us to do whatever we want to do and be and accomplish whatever we want to be. But on a grander scale, I think we've also lost some of the idea, some of that notion that, yes, we are also we the people, right? We are a group of individuals who are also trying to do something bigger. And so this idea of, I think that's something we've lost. And it's interesting that, to see a culture that talks about in a collective we is pretty cool, and they do some pretty amazing stuff as far as how they help each other and what that means for their community. So,
And I'd say that to that point, the we approach, there's that Maya Angelou quote, we are more alike than we are unalike.
100%.
So all these different things that we're so different, no, we're pretty close to being the same. And I do some work with the Humanitarian Coaching Network. So I'm working with a guy in Kenya and Yemen and Japan, and we're doing a Zoom call. The world has changed, right? These Zoom calls, I've gotten better at Zoom too. It's like, wait a minute. You got kids running around back there. You're on the other side of the globe, and wow, you're kind of just like me. It's amazing how that's the reality, and we have to continue to feed ourselves and those kind of reminders and thoughts that we're way more alike than we are unalike.
Right.
So
everybody's worried about their kids. Everybody's worried about where their money's going to come
Yeah.
from, where they're
Yep.
going to have a house, and are they going to progress, and what their kids, how's everything going to go?
Yep.
And I don't know if anybody is, I turn down the morbid, but if you've ever been in a cadaver lab,
Yeah.
everybody looks the same. Everybody looks the same with your skin off, man. Like biceps attached at the same place. It'll blow your mind if you think too hard about it. Like in my grad school, we had 25 bodies in the room, and it's amazing that they can give you a test on using 25 bodies and tagging structures in different bodies, and yet you can study one body, but you can pass the test on any of them. Because this thing that we are, that starts off with 2 cells, somehow over billions of people has managed to reproduce. I mean, sure, there's anomalies and just differences, right? But everything is the same over and over and over again. And we are all like, everybody's got a different skin suit, but underneath that skin suit, we're all the same, both spiritually and physically.
I like to say consciousness reflected in the form of Homo erectus, and so yeah, I mean, like we're all in this the spacesuit journey together, man. And I think one thing too is that going back into service into our communities, I also think that starts at the root, which is sovereignty. And I think that autonomy within self can allow you to really step into that place of service. And so when you sovereign people then are self-guided, and that's like when you're looking for that information and really seeking to become your best and truest self. And when you're doing that then becomes part of the service, and then that comes into the community and that builds up. So like in AA groups, it's like going and being a service and serving the coffee, and and leading the serenity prayer or whatever it is. I mean, but it all starts with you and what you're doing at home to be and stay in this place of sobriety, consciousness, recovery, and that starts with sovereignty. And I think sovereignty then leads to service then leads up to this larger community, and that community leads into the collective.
That's so powerful.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and I like the pains that we have. Like just saying, what's so cool about this, and most people will be like, "What the fuck is he talking about?" COVID. We all get to look at the same thing at the same time.
Yeah.
That's why it's having so much power in people, because we're all looking at it at the same time. It would be like if everyone was addicted to the same thing at the same time. And when I spoke with my friend who was dealing with his addiction, and he wasn't his addiction. He wasn't the addiction itself. But so many people kept telling him in his head, I'm like, you're not the thing. You're holding on to the thing, but you're not the thing. Whether it was COVID or something else, something was going to attack us. And now we get to see, okay, how do we show up when we have to look at it as a collective? Not so perfectly yet. That's okay. We'll get there. It's a practice thing, just like anything.
But isn't it perfect? Like that's like the idea of perfect imperfection. I think that what we are doing is perfect. So this is my avoidance of lack, right? Because for me to say that it's wrong or not good, or then that means I'm giving my energy to that. I'm giving my resources to something I don't actually want. So letting that go and I think that we are exactly where we're supposed to be. Like, we're all supposed to be here right now having this conversation, sharing with each other, getting to know, hopefully bringing some level of impact or inspiration or connection, just like connection within a greater community. I think it's perfect. Like, I literally think this is perfect.
Yep.
Cliff, I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
It's so that we're all experiencing this. I think, I could be wrong. I think that's the first time it's been so impactful for everybody the same in my lifetime. Right? Maybe like a
Dinosaurs,
world war was
maybe.
the same or something. But since I've been alive, I think it's probably been that. You guys are all powerful. This has been an amazing experience. How can we, maybe hitting on some of the highlights that we talked about today, what's the lesson? Moving into 2022, how are you and how can the people listening move into 2022 with a positive mindset? So, Brian, can I have you?
Yeah, and I'll just go quick. The reminder is we need to remind ourselves this, and the people that we interact with, is that we're designed for greatness. We're not designed to be average, pretty good, really good. We're designed for greatness, not for ego, but so that we can serve other people. And that's the other part of it is when you feel yourself slipping into that the wrong mindset. It's okay to get into the wrong mindset. It's not okay to stay there. Right? So when you slip into that wrong mindset, lean into I've got to serve some others. And when you do that, it maybe it's a selfish thing, right? I'm serving you to make myself feel better.
Yes.
But ultimately, man, I feel better about myself, because don't forget the things that we complain about, other people pray for.
Right?
So
Beautiful.
I would just say it's that 1%. Just striving daily, weekly, whatever your capacity is to always being that 1% better, and always like taking that personal accountability and realizing that it's not an all or nothing. Like, it's not going to be perfect. It doesn't have to be everything at once, but as long as you're continually putting that one step forward and continually moving in the right direction. And again, service is key. Like, as long as you continue to serve, like, I think it's huge.
Yeah. I think for moving into 2022, I think first and foremost, I think people need to disconnect a little bit. We talked, was it hypnotizing yourself? I think we've hypnotized ourselves with social media, with the news, with Netflix, right? Like, if people think about it, listening, when was the last time you truly sat in silence? No music, no TV, no podcast, not reading something, but truly just sat and were with yourself for even 5 minutes. And I think a lot of people, to moving into 2022, I think people, for me, and what I've tried to do for myself and for some of the people that I work with, is take 5 minutes. Think about what things you would like or desire to be different for yourself and your family in 2022. You are destined for greatness. You are built for greatness. So be with your great self for 5 minutes. Pick one thing that you're going to, that 1%, that one thing that you're going to change for yourself and your family, and think about that thing for 5 minutes with no other distraction. And I guarantee you will have some kind of a solution to that problem, because you're devoting all your time, energy, and for 5 minutes thinking about it. And then move. Even if it's a ready, shoot, aim, move. Because when you move, bodies in motion stay in motion. And you'll all of a sudden get inspiration for the next thing. And then the next thing, and things happen. And then something bad's going to happen, but you're going to keep moving, right? And so move. And even, that's it for me. Be still, think, and then execute.
I like that. I love that. It reminds me of a quote. Or I don't know if it's a quote, but it's something I say, which is...
You know what? All you had to do was attribute it twice to somebody, and then it's yours.
Is that wisdom is knowledge and action. And that's exactly that's what you're talking about. I think of this, for me, my takeaway, or what I would love for people to do, taking that time. Meditation is like, ooh, man, that's my sweet spot. That's my medicine. And taking that time to internally reflect and get more clear about who you are, what your values are, and then bring that into the world. I think of like my ultimate goal in life is to have my ego in service of my soul, like where this meat suit, that it is acting and being in service of the greater good and of the community, of the collective, but in a way that is the expression of my sovereignty, that is the expression of my authentic, unique self. So just be who you are. Like, get to know that person, love that person, and bring that to the damn world. Like, we need that so badly.
Absolutely. Mastery of self is a one day at a time process.
Yes.
And really stepping into your truest self in 2022 is ultimately beginning to let go of that which hasn't served you to this point. I mean, the thing is what's going on is always going to go on in some way, shape, or form or the other. And really letting go of the control that's keeping you out of control is what I speak about. Letting go of the control that's keeping you out of control, and really stepping into the solution, breathing, being, stepping into the solution, and having, like you said, that clarity and serenity. I think those are some of the two most undermined and underrated qualities of serenity, being in a place of peace. Because when you're in peace, you can deliver from source, your higher self. You're not delivering from your ego, which is the lower self, and you're not perpetuating these same thoughts, feelings, and actions over and over and over again. When you're in your higher self, you can have in that space of clarity, purpose. You can begin to attach and be connected with the divine, which allows you then to carry on your mission of life. And then the last thing I would have to say is that if there's something, if wherever you are, the only thing that I can say is you got to accept where you are. acceptance is huge. I mean, that's if you're an addict, step out of denial into acceptance. You are where you are because you're where you are. And understand that change isn't hard, rather change is just something new. And change is a simple daily discipline, one day at a time. So 2022 can absolutely be anybody's year by simply having simple daily disciplines incorporated little by little by little over time. And then I always look back, especially when I start to coach or I'm in sobriety or when I speak in meetings or anything like the such, is like, imagine 365 days from now, 1 year from now, if you were to practice this one day at a time, you'd have 1 full year of sobriety. And then you do that again 1 day at a time, and then you have another full year. And then all of a sudden you'll look back and be like, man, that was 10 years ago. Now imagine if you put that into weight loss, business, relationships, your family, whatever it is that one day at a time principle.
1% one day. Love it.
So mine is always starts with questions, because a question gets a person to really think about their reality. So I say, who do you want to be and who do you want to become? And if you are who you are and you like it, great, celebrate that. But if you want something different, take it one step at a time, inch by inch. Inch by inch, it's a cinch, yard by yard, it's hard. And so if we step back and say, okay, I want to become this thing, what's one thing that you can do today? I love being me. I'm happy to be me. I've enjoyed my journey. And so my celebration is I'm going to go home to my wife and thank her for allowing me, because that's what she did. She allowed me. Sundays is family day. And I told her, Daniel said he's going to have me with a bunch of powerful people who are going to have a lot of insights, and he did. So thank you. I appreciate that. And so I'm going to go celebrate that. And I thank all of you. You guys are all amazing with so many philosophies and principles. In fact, I will give one equation that I'm coming up with. Right philosophy plus right principle plus right strategy plus right value add equals the right result. Because that's all we're ever looking for, is a result at the end of the day. So go get your results on your journey.
Love it. Awesome.
You guys have all been amazing. Here at Spartan Nation, we use a lot of phrases, right, Heather? We use a lot of phrases. And it was really cool to see each of you use some of the phrasing that we use here. We say, come, find your greatness. I think having everyone this 2022 look for their greatness is the solution, is how we can move forward. And having those goals in mind, finding out how to set those goals and say, like Heather said, I use a phrase, I am so happy and grateful that. I'm so happy and grateful that this has happened, or that I am this way. And then the path becomes clear to me how to get there. The brain is a powerful tool. The brain is a powerful tool. Brig taught us how it can control our body, how it can control our pains, how it can control our strength. So have the right mindset moving into 2022. Go find your greatness. I've been surrounded by greatness today, so I have found my greatness here with these people here. You guys are amazing. That was way more than I could have ever hoped for. That was incredible. Hope being a bad word. I put hope on the paper. Did you see? No, and it's just been incredible. You guys are amazing. Are we good? Did we make it?
Yeah.
I mean, we could go for a couple more hours.
I'm
I
sure.
know.
We could go for a couple more days.
Progression, not perfection, baby. This has been progress.
So we have hit on how to move forward. We said there maybe were some drawbacks, setbacks in 2020, 2021. I got some perspectives that I wasn't expecting. And now we talked about how to move forward. Each one of you has been incredible. Tell us one more time real quick, going around, who you are, how people can get a hold of you, and what you do in this world.
So I'm grateful. My name is Brian Wood. Best way to reach me, I'm the worst at social media. Wait, that's not the way to say it, right? There's an opportunity for me to improve social media. Best way, text messages always work great, 602 733-4864. manformarscoaching.com. You can find me out there on the web, and very grateful to be in this room of awesomeness. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks. I'm Tara. You can find me on Instagram at Battle Ready Project, or you can text me because I'm a texter, 480-600-0791. And I'm really bad at social media too, so. And I'm grateful for everyone who showed up today. Like when Dan messaged me and he said, "Hey, I want to talk to you. Come down to the gym." And so we sat for a little bit and had a conversation and kind of came up with this idea. And he said, should we do it? And I was like, "Oh, that's not even a question. We're doing it." And we're going to do it soon. And so thank you guys for showing
Sure.
up
Very
and
cool.
being willing to be open, and your ideas are fantastic.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm Brig Woods. You can probably best way to find me is at Polaris PT PHX on Instagram, or you can go to same thing PolarisPTPHX.com, or you can call or message me at 480-808-4995.
I am Heather Story. I don't want to get better at social media, honestly. I like to invest my time in things where I actually feel like I'm truly connecting with people. So with that said, you can find me at heatherkstory.com. And cell is 602-763-2700. And I would love to have a conversation. Like, this has been an amazing conversation here, and what comes next? Yeah.
I'm Josh Moore, and I am on all social media.
Youngest guy in the group.
Yeah, I'd imagine. But,
We're going to hire you out now.
You can find me at More in the Know on Instagram, and that's all my platforms is More in the Know. It's my last name, MORIN, the Know. And then you could check out Field Supplements at fieldsupplements.com. And then I do invite everybody every single Wednesday, actually just moved it to 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I host a Mastermind Alliance Clubhouse call. I don't know if you guys have utilized the Clubhouse platform at all, but there's anywhere between 12 to 30 to 40 people every single Wednesday. Just people just like us doing exactly this every single Wednesday night. So we definitely would love to get you guys get connected, and anybody watching this, feel free to join in as well.
Very cool. Clifford Starks, you can text me at 602-403-6957. And I also have a Facebook group where entrepreneurs who are dream chasers can come in and just celebrate one another. And that is Mind Body Business Mastery.
Awesome. Nice work.
I'm part of Clifford's group.
Hold it down.
My name's Daniel Huber, and I am the coach here at Spartan Nation Combatives. You can reach me at Spartan Nation Combatives on Instagram, I think it is. Is that what it's called, Heather? Also, yeah, IG, as the cool kids say. Yeah. SpartanNationCombatives.com, and we're down here in Mesa, so you're welcome to roll on in and have a workout and learn how to fight. You guys have been amazing.
This place is amazing. Love this place.
Yeah.
It's a family.
The best.
We did it. Yeah.
That's
Thank you, everyone.
Hey, that is seriously awesome, Dan. Everyone, nice work, man.
Sit stop over there on